Today on the table, we have a Dan Wesson Discretion. So this is actually a 9mm. It would have a suppressor on it. I actually don't have any suppressors, amazing enough, for all the pistols that I have. But this one actually comes with a threaded barrel, so I can show you that here. The laws are going to change here soon for getting stamps. So it'll make it a lot easier to get a stamp. And I'm waiting till the 1st of next year in order to get that. And then I will get a suppressor or a barrel for it. And actually in the comments, if you know one that you really like, if you have anything that's suppressed, let me know, and I will, let me know which model or brand that you have, because I am going to be in the market to look for one. The store that I normally buy a lot of stuff from, they sell them, and, I'd love to have a suppressed 22 and such, but I will be eventually getting one for this. But this is, like I said, a Dan Wesson Discretion. So it's a 9mm, and you can see here, we can do a quick safety check. You can see there, it is not loaded. You can see the magazine right there. So it is a 10 round, it's got a 10 round mag, single stack, 9mm. Now Dan Wesson is actually pretty cool as I was doing the history about the company. So, these are American made handguns. They're based out of New York. It even actually says it right here, New York, Norwich, New York. They moved around a little bit, but the Dan Wesson actually worked for Smith & Wesson. So Dan Wesson II, he worked for Smith & Wesson from 1938 to 1963. And he really strictly controlled production quality. And as you see on my channel, I have a lot of Smith & Wessons, and they are fantastic, the ones from those 50s and 60s. Now, after the purchase of Smith & Wesson by a company called Bangor Punta, Wesson set out to kind of do his own thing, and to manufacture his own perfectly made high quality firearms. And he actually ended up partnering with a gun maker named Carl Lewis. And Carl Lewis had a modular design, but really what they started doing, because Smith & Wesson is mainly a revolver company, Dan Wesson initially made revolvers. So revolvers only. So in the late 70s, early 80s, they really only made revolvers. And and of course they kind of named them similar to the models of Smith & Wesson. So they had a Model 15, and that one actually did pretty well. For sales wise, it came in a 357 and a 22 long. That was the caliber that their Dan Wesson Model 15 came in. And then they actually ended up making a larger frame version of it, which was in a 44 magazine. In a 44 Magnum, and that came out in 1980. And actually sales for that also did very well. So for a while they did really good. So from 1978 or so, he passed in 78, but from the time that he ran the business, he started the business in 1968. And then until around 1990, business was actually quite solid with them selling and making revolvers. But then they had some issues. There's some financial troubles. Actually, one of the biggest issues was when he passed in 1978, that kind of threw things for a little bit of a loop. So they had to move the factory. And, they're still making things, but they had to move the factory. Their equipment was older. It was kind of outdated. And it kind of reduced the profits that they made on the guns. So they had to eventually they declared bankruptcy in 1990. So things were okay for a while. And then what happened was they moved to Massachusetts. And then they changed the name to Dan Wesson Firearms. And then in 1995, unfortunately, they had to declare bankruptcy again. And then a fellow named Bob Serva purchased the corporation and all of its assets. And then they moved it back to Norwich, New York, which you can see right here. And that's where it's currently located. And now they make lots of different pistols. So they make 357s. Besides revolvers, they make pistols. So they make a 1911, this is basically a 1911, but chambered in 9. They make 1911s, chambered in 45 ACP. And, they make quite a few different ones. You can obviously look at their website. But then, again, there are some more financial hardships and issues with sales. And in 2005, the company was purchased by CZ. So, the American version of CZ. But other than that, they're still fantastic. The slide on this is crazy. It's just so smooth. And, and it's just got a great spring on it. You can see here that It has some cutouts just for cooling purposes, and it looks pretty cool too. The sights are really tall on it, as you can see, and the reason for that is if you had a suppressor at the end, then you would be able to see over the suppressor at the end. But yeah, it doesn't have an ambidextrous safety. You can see that it just has the safety on the one side like a 1911 does. It does have the grip safety like a 1911. It has a drilled out trigger and more of a skeletonized hammer as well, but it's very nicely made. The grips on it are really nice. The machining right here you can see on the front strap is really nice, and then even here on the back strap, it's grippy, but it doesn't like dig into your hands. So it's just a really nicely made pistol. And there's not really any play in the slide at all whatsoever, which is really nice. So just, they do come at a little bit of a cost. They are a little bit more expensive because they're made very well. But I'd recommend it. I'm very much looking forward to getting a cool suppressor for it so that I can shoot it. And it is, considerably quiet. When I bought it, I had the store put a suppressor on it, and then I got to shoot it in the range with it on there, and it was really fun. But I'm looking to get my own here when the stamp rules change January 1st. But again, let me know in the comments. Do you have any Dan Wessons? Do you have a Discretion? And then what your thoughts are on what suppressors that you like the most. And again, just let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.